Welcome again to Cottage Talk. This is Cottage Talk full time. I'm Russ Goldman. This is Tony Gold. We are going to be discussing our initial reaction to Fulham's 2-2 draw. Fulham deserved a point against Liverpool. That's what I'm calling it, Tony. And for the next, 15 minutes, half hour, we're just going to share our initial reaction to what we just watched, which is some insane stuff, especially at the end of the match. And we're going to go through it. I do want to mention I will leave this show up for people to watch. We're live on X, we're live on YouTube, we're live on Facebook. But if you do want to listen to it, it's going to be specifically on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. If you're interested, please do go to the Cottage Talk Patreon page, become a paid member. I've been doing a show each and every day in the month of January. I'm going to continue to do it. But if I get 50 additional paid members, I will continue this throughout the entire season, to the end of the season through May. So please do become a paid member on the page. All right, enough. Tony, what did we just watch? Give me your initial reaction.
I thought Fulham were absolutely magnificent today, Russ.
Absolutely.
I really do.
Absolutely.
Thought, when you think about the players that were unavailable, the players that were away, the depth of the squad, I thought the way that we set up, the way that we played, the way that we controlled the game at times, individually, collectively, I thought over the, whole 97 minutes, I thought Fulham were fantastic. Obviously, we had a couple of ropey moments. The second goal that we conceded, I thought was really poor. But, it would have been a travesty of justice had we not at least got a point from that game today. And you're sitting there with your head in your hands thinking, how have Fulham managed to throw this away, having, been very dominant at times and had some, really good opportunities. But then to, have that sickness feeling suddenly turn to complete euphoria with a once in a lifetime goal that Harrison Reed will never ever score again in his lifetime. I mean, that's football, Russ, isn't it? It's just incredible.
That's why we watch it. That's why we support. That's why we watch. And I will just say, Harrison Reed, I am sorry for even suggesting you should leave Fulham. I'm going to say it right now. What a goal, Tony. What a moment. So my initial reaction is this. It would have been a travesty if Fulham
100%
lost that in the end. There's no question about it. The one thing I want to mention is that, I want to give you a lot of credit because you actually got the formation right. The only difference was that he started Lukic instead of Berga, but it worked. So have to give Marco a lot of credit, have to give coaching staff and the players so much credit because what I watched, Tony, even like you said, there were some poor moments. We could talk about the goal. We'll talk about the goal from Gakpo. But honestly, it was played. I mean, it was dictated by Fulham. That's the best way I feel that it was on Fulham's terms. It was being played that way, especially that first half. No answers from Liverpool. The second half is a little bit different, but you expected a reaction. So how would Fulham react? I thought as we got into the second half, they reacted very well. Should have had a goal from Harry Wilson. We'll talk about that, hitting the crossbar, right? So it was that close there. Who would have thought there'd be other goals like we saw? But the effort, the amount of players that were out for Fulham Football Club, that to me, I know it's not a victory, but it feels like one, Tony. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, look, as I said, everybody, when you put everything in perspective in terms of, as I said, with players that Fulham have missing, the fact that you're playing Liverpool, and I know they haven't been playing particularly well, but you know what? It's still Liverpool. They're still a good side. They've still got players that can hurt you. And for us to, and for Marco Silva to recognise that actually, you know what, with the players that weren't available to switch to the system that he switched to today, it worked brilliantly. We had, our better, more technical players on the pitch. And it showed us because, when you've got players that are brave, dropping into areas to pick up the ball like Kearney does, like Lukic does, like Smith Rowe, who, by the way, was outstanding today. He was absolutely outstanding today, as was Sasha Lukic. I think that, it starts the right mindset for you to go on and win a game. And, it was just nice to see Fulham control a game of football for large periods against the current champions. That's basically what we did today, Russ. And as I said, sitting there thinking that we've been mugged off again, and I want to talk about their first goal, Russ. Because
we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about
that. Just does not make sense to me. But anyway, that aside, that is a game that I think actually, I'm happy with the point. But again, it's another game that actually Fulham should have won.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's frustrating. And again, we'll talk about all the goals during the show because I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the whole VAR and the Liverpool goal and what I saw on my screen compared to what the technology did. I still can't understand it, but we'll talk about it because the way that the technology showed it was that their player's leg was up in the air, and the view I got, it wasn't. That's what made it onside. Again, we'll talk about it because that to me was a little crazy. I didn't even look close to me, Tony, but apparently it was. So I don't know. We'll go through that. So that was a good way to start the show by just giving our initial reaction. But I want to now dive into talking about the first half, and then we'll talk about Wilson's goal. But like I said, I talked to you on the phone yesterday, and you said, listen, I've got an idea. I think Fulham should play with 3 center backs. And you named the team except for you had Berg instead of Lukic. I want to get your thoughts about Lukic in there with Kearney and that first half. Let's just talk about how it worked. We'll talk about the goals separately. Let's talk about how Liverpool looked toothless. And I think a lot of that had to do with us, Fulham.
Right. So by setting up with the 5 effectively, what Robinson and Castagna did is that it sort of made Jones and Salazar-Bell play slightly deeper because, they can't just leave them 1v1 versus, Bradley and Kirkes. So it actually put Liverpool on the back foot a little bit. And so, then it allowed, as I said, Kearney and Lukic to get into those areas, into midfield, to pick up the ball and to enable us to get on the front foot. Now, I think the reason why he went with Lukic is because Lukic is a bit more progressive as a footballer,
right,
and likes to get forward. And I just think it was very brave of him to go in there. I think, and that's why he's done it. And actually, it was very effective because the amount of times, in fact, Lukic at times was our highest player. Certainly first half, he was the one that was really getting forward and in fact, playing almost alongside Raul at times.
Right.
So it really caused Liverpool a problem. And also what it did is then it meant Gravenberch and McAllister almost became ineffective because they were the ones that actually ended up chasing shadows and were trying to stop Lukic and Kearney from playing. So it just really worked for us. And then obviously Smith Rowe and Wilson were able to get into pockets of space and actually cause their 2 centre halves, Konate especially, a lot of problems.
Yeah. And listen, that was the beauty of the system that they played. And I know it's defensive by nature, but the way it was set up, it would allow Fulham, if it was played correctly, to have opportunities, which they did, Tony. So let's talk about Wilson's goal. And obviously, they looked at it, and at first it was called offside, and then it got reversed. So I guess we got one that VAR looked like that went in our favor, and then we'll talk about the other one. But when you look at it, this looked like a goal. Even to the naked eye, I thought it was a goal. But let's talk about Harry Wilson, because this is one of my 3 keys to victory was Harry Wilson. It was. I thought Harry Wilson had to have a big game, and he absolutely did. And I thought he would against Liverpool. So let's talk about how wonderful this goal was and deserved.
It was a really good goal, but also it's Lukic's pass that actually makes the goal. But Wilson's run is sublime because he's absolutely timed that to perfection. I couldn't understand why it was taking them so long. He was clearly onside. And, that could have put Wilson off. But obviously, he's kept his composure and it's a really terrific finish. And actually, at that point in the game, it was fully deserved because, for first 15, 20 minutes, we were in control.
Yeah.
You know, I know some people say, yeah, we gave the ball away cheap. That's going to happen at times because of the players that you've got on the pitch. And of course, we could have looked after it a little bit better. And certainly second half, which we will talk about, where
definitely
it ended up being our downfall to a degree. But look, ultimately, it was a really good goal, fully deserved, and we deserved to be in the ascendancy at that point.
We absolutely did, Tony. And then I'm just thinking to myself, because you and I were talking about if Fulham get the lead, they really have a chance to actually play the way that they were set up. Because the fact that he starts Kearney and Lukic together, you and I have been talking about, let's reverse it. Instead of Kearney coming on for 30, let's do it in reverse. He actually, I want to say Kearney played 78 minutes. So he actually played for a long period of time, but it gave them the impetus, the ability to play this formation and break when they needed to. And like you said, cause havoc to Liverpool. Because one, they were toothless. Two, when Fulham did create their opportunities in the first half, it was to our advantage. And I think the way that Marco did this, and I just want to give him and his staff a lot of credit. And I also want to give him credit for the substitutions he made in the second half, because I think they were brave. And I'm going to say, you know, sometimes I say save Silva, right? This wasn't save Silva, Tony. This was actually a very good tactical game for him.
Yeah, look, any substitution you make and when the game is tight like it was is you know, it's a gamble ultimately, and sometimes it goes for you, and sometimes it doesn't. And look, I think that ultimately he didn't really have many options. Is the truth for us. What he had was, as I said, like for like, pretty much. You just hope that we didn't get an injury defensively, because that could have caused us a bit of a problem. But look, it didn't. And as I said, I think, you know, I know we've conceded 2 goals today, but actually, as I said, over the 97 minutes, we've defended very well. And I think that, you know, there is something to be said about Tom Kearney, you know, playing, because what he does is, you know, class is permanent, Russ. At the end of the day, yeah, he might not have the legs to get through 90 minutes, but what he does have is he has the ability to control a game of football and to get you in the ascendancy, which is what he did for us today in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Tony, we see the first half out, and I was just saying to myself, you and I didn't talk at the half. Sometimes we do. So let's get to the end of the half. And I was just thinking, just get to the half, up 1-0. I'm thinking you certainly need a second goal against this side. But what were you thinking at halftime?
I was just thinking that actually, you know, very, very good half. Nothing needs to change second half. Silva just needs to get into them a little bit about, you know, not giving the ball away as you know, too cheaply, because I think at times that was the only time that Liverpool looked, you know, semi-dangerous. And to just make sure that we remained concentrated and that everybody, you know, continued to do their job. So, you know, Diop, Cuenca, Anderson, just carry on defending. Don't try and do anything flash. Don't try and do anything silly. Don't try and go on any mazy runs and break out like Diop did in the second half for about, lost his, just things like that. Don't lose your discipline is what I think was the key. And if they kept their discipline and stayed switched on, I didn't feel at any time that Liverpool were going to threaten us. That's the truth.
It didn't feel that way in the first half. I knew that there would be a reaction. I knew that we would see something different in the second half, which we certainly did, Tony. But going into the second half, I'm just thinking more of the same and then adjust where you need to. We know it's going to be like for like, but still freshen it up and bring on other players, which he absolutely did. So I want to share this from Steve. Do you agree with Steve with giving Diop a shout?
100%. I think there are. I want to talk about Anthony Robinson because
go ahead.
There's a lot to talk about there. But I think the 3 centre halves in Cuenca, Diop, and Anderson actually defended really well. And considering that Diop hasn't played for, you know, quite a while, I thought, you know, he was excellent today. I thought the 3 of them were honestly, you know, as solid as they possibly could be.
Right. And Tony, did I lose you for a second? You still there?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so the thing about Anderson is that, you know, the thing about Robinson is everyone will say to today that Robinson has done well today. Yes, he has done well. Going forward, He's caused Liverpool a lot of problems, got himself into some very good positions, been a little bit wasteful at times, but, great energy. But defensively, Russ, I think he has had an absolute shocker today in certain positions. He's jumping into tackles, turning his back, not getting tight enough. The second goal, I mean, honestly, he's way off it. So I don't want to be overcritical because, ultimately, as I said, as a collective back five, they've done well. But his individual performance defensively wasn't great today. It really wasn't great.
Okay, fair enough. And Steve actually agrees. He says Jedi did not get tight enough. And
he wasn't tight enough the whole game defensively. He just wasn't.
Yeah. No, very good. I want to share this from Chris. And Chris, thank you so much for joining us. And I actually agree 100% with Chris because he's a Liverpool supporter. He's honest. And thank you, Chris. And Chris listens and watches all of our shows. So, Chris, thank you for joining us after this match. This is what he shares, and we'll get your thoughts. Fulham played like a team, and Liverpool played like 10 random strangers off the streets. That's how it felt like in the first half. I thought it was a little bit different in the second half. Well, what do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I think you've got to credit Marco Silva and Fulham for nullifying a lot of what, Liverpool could do. As I said, individually, they've got some great talent out there. And it's a weird one because, they've gone from being this well-oiled, unit from last season, obviously absolutely a can to winning the league.
Yep. To
suddenly being this, as you say, incoherent at times and just very individualistic. Now, there are obviously reasons for that. They've lost, I think, a couple of really key players. But, just think about the players that Fulham didn't have out there today, 7 in total that, all arguably could be starters. Do you know what I mean? So, it was a bit of an odd one. And as I say, when Liverpool scored their second goal and effectively thought they'd won the game, I was sitting there thinking, we've been absolutely robbed here. I mean, like literally the depression was already setting in. Look, as I said, Fulham did not deserve to lose that game today under any circumstances.
No, absolutely. It actually reminded me at the time, I think it was Sadio Mane that won a penalty for Liverpool several seasons ago. And it reminded me of that. It's like a moment, and it was in stoppage time, if I remember. I could be wrong, but it felt like there was no way that this should be happening, but it was happening again. Let's see. So I want to share. We're going to talk about this next, Steve, just so you know. Chris, hand on the heart, was the VAR working in your favor? Because we're going to get to that coming up next because we're watching this, and I don't know if we got the same broadcast. You watch from home. I'm watching here. And let's talk about the second half before we talk about their goal. So I felt a little nervous. I knew that there'd be a reaction to him. Before we talk about the Liverpool goal, they had the goal that was, again, he was offside. I think it was Gakpo, but he was way offside. So there was no question on that one. So up to that point, I could feel the pressure building. How are you feeling before we talk about the equalizer for Liverpool?
Yeah, look, Liverpool, after the break came out a little bit brighter. They started to, gently knock on the door. And I think the warning signs for Fulham were there. And I think that from my perspective, if I was Marco Silva, the instructions that I would be trying to get across to them was just to tighten up the passing, the distribution. We were getting a little bit slack, a little bit loose, maybe a little bit of tiredness was creeping into, to some of the players. But in those instances, it's when you need, your Kearneys and your Lukiches to just step up and just settle everyone down, get their foot on the ball, slow the game down a bit, and just keep possession rather than trying to keep on trying to, thread balls through or try and hit them. We've got the lead, just control the game. And I think that the game started to get away from us just a little bit at that point.
Yeah. And that's what it felt like. And, again, the commentary I had is that you could see what the strategy was to basically get balls out over us and then, let them run onto it. And that's what was going on. It was, I was getting a little bit nervous. They were being much more aggressive with their passing and it was working. But let's now talk about the equalizer for Liverpool. So initially, this is called offside. And I'm sure you got the same view as I did, Tony. It didn't even look close to me. It did not look close. The next thing I know, they're stopping the play because they're going to take a look at this. And I'm thinking, and I'm looking at the view, it's like, this still is not close enough, at least the view I got. So before we talk about the decision, and then of course the equipment that is being used, and again, it's that equipment that you see tennis use. I believe it's the Hawkeye equipment, if I'm correct, right? I think it is, but I still don't understand it. But when you initially looked at this, didn't you think it was offside?
All I'm going to say about this, Russell, is that the PGMOL need to come out and explain very clearly how that goal has been allowed to stand and is onside. Because I've looked at it on so many different angles. Plain and simply, Gakpo's foot is 2 centimeters further forward than our last defender. It is offside. And someone said in the comments, actually, if that's not offside because VAR, then our groundsman needs to be sacked, because the line can completely. And then they've come out now. VAR have come out and said, oh, it's something to do with 5 centimeters to the left, and if your foot's down on the ground, and it's utter rubbish. That goal is offside every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. And the PGMOL need to come out and explain how that goal has been allowed to stand. I don't understand it. I'm sitting here completely and utterly baffled. Makes no sense to me at all. Any, it's offside. That's it. Offside. End of. So how they've come to that decision, someone needs to come out and clearly explain it and show the clear picture where that is onside, because it's not.
Yeah. And again, that's what I don't understand. And I just don't get that. But again, they get the equalizer, Tony. So we're at 1-1. Okay. So now afterwards, you have a lot of changes from Fulham. And what did you make of the substitutions? Let's talk about that and how it might have changed the game. What did you make of the substitutions?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I was sitting there thinking, actually, Marco Silva doesn't really need to change anything. And there's always this risk that when you bring off players that are, up to the game level and in the game, players coming off the bench, they're cold, they're not quite up to speed. There's always that risk. But look, it made sense that Kearney, 74 minutes, he's done his job.
Yeah,
might be a bit leggy. Sanderberg makes perfect sense in that regard. But then you're not going to have the same impetus with him coming on, because he's a completely different player. And Emil Smith-Rowe, I personally would not have taken him off. I thought he was having a fantastic game. But I can understand why, you want to get Kevin on, because at the moment there is this air of uncertainty about him. And maybe with 15 minutes, he could produce a bit of magic that would end up winning the game. Ironically, we did have a bit of magic, but it wasn't from the player that you thought you were going to get it from. So, no, I was relatively calm about the changes, and I thought they were okay.
Okay, and Dean's like, clearly offside. They just relied on a frame by frame for the VAR. The initial decision was correct.
100% right, Dean.
And Dean, I agree with you. That's why I'm just dumbfounded by this. And I hate to say it. I hate to say it. One of the things that's going through my mind, and I shouldn't say this, and Chris, I know you're watching. Of course they're doing it because it's Liverpool. I'm thinking that, right? That's going through my head. It's like, well, if it's in reverse, is the goal going to count for Fulham? I mean, again, I guess we got a call. So are they trying to equal the calls out? I don't know.
Russ, I've got no issue with the decision, but they need to come out and be very clear about how they've come to that decision. When 99% of the football world, and this is not just Fulham fans, 99% of the football world looking at it, think that's offside.
That's offside.
How can 99% of them be wrong, but the two buffoons sitting in the box have called it on? It's just mind-blowingly bad.
Yeah, it's crazy. So again, all the changes I made, but I want to talk about this. And like I mentioned, Harry Wilson, I thought was great. Tony, now again, Allison basically muffs it a little bit, I guess you could say, and it goes to Harry Wilson, and he hits the crossbar. Oh my! If this went in, now again we have all of the drama afterwards. I have a feeling if this does not hit the crossbar and it's a goal, that things might have been a little bit different. Who knows? But again, what did you think at that moment?
He's got to score. That's basically the bottom line, Russ. He's got to score. And if that ball falls to anybody on the pitch, I'm thinking I want that ball to fall to Harry Wilson, because that's going into the back of the net. And he's had the whole, pretty much the whole goal. Look, I can see he's been unlucky, but he's still, in my mind, he's got to score that, Russ. And again, we're looking at it thinking the Palace game, we've missed 2 really good chances to win the game. And for me, that was as good as a chance as any. And I said, you back yourself, you put your house on Harry Wilson scoring that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Tony, let's now talk about what happened at the end. So 7 minutes of stoppage time. I'm thinking at this point, please, let's get out of there with a point. They deserve something. Fulham deserve something from this. But I also thought they might have an opportunity to win the match. What happened next was, again, let's talk about the goal from Gakpo. You've already discussed it. They defended, I'm talking about as a collective, very well, those center backs. The goal from Gakpo, you see Anderson's leg, he misses it, and then it goes in the back of the net. What did you make of this goal?
Yeah, there's a phase of play before it gets to that point, Russ. And the thing is that for 96 minutes, as I said, Fulham have defended really well. I can't, you can't criticise any of the back 5 at all, and that includes Robinson and Castagna in that. I thought Diop, Cuenca, Anderson actually, were very good today. You cannot criticise them. But unfortunately, in that moment, before the ball gets put across the goal, Anthony Robinson has to do better there, Russ. He has to do better. He has to get out quicker, close that ball down, and stop that cross coming in. And unfortunately, he looked ropey defensively the whole game. Someone mentioned it earlier. I think Steve mentioned it. He wasn't close enough. For most of the game.
Wasn't tight enough. Yeah.
Wasn't tight enough. And also, he's got this terrible habit of jumping into tackles and turning his back. And it's like, no, just go through the man. The ball's there to be won. Go through him.
Yeah.
And so I thought he defended that situation poorly. And then obviously Anderson, I don't know what he's doing there. He's got his body shape completely all over the place. And it was a really poor guy. And I'm thinking, we've done so well to this point, and just one poor defensive moment, and we've given the game away.
Yeah, it really, Tony, I just could not believe it. Like I said, I felt like I've seen the movie too many times, but this one didn't feel that they deserved to lose. I'm talking about Fulham didn't deserve to lose. It just didn't feel that way. Okay, so now we have the magic moment. And what's beautiful about all of this, and Chris, love you, Chris, but I was thinking once this goes in the back of the net, all those Liverpool supporters, especially the ones at Craven Cottage, boo-hoo, because they were, obviously very happy. What was it, a minute later? Harrison Reed decides to take a shot and puts it in the back of the net. And I am sorry I've been talking about Harrison Reed should go. After this, I'm going to shut my mouth. What a goal. Out of nothing, Harrison Reed puts it in the back of the net. I don't know how many goals he scored for Fulham. It's not that many. What did you make of this?
Well, I mean, arguably it's goal of the season already, Russ. I mean, you're not going to see much better than that. I mean, let's be honest. Look, the ironic thing is actually a minute before Reed scores that, Slot brings on Gomez for Gakpo, right? To basically shore it up. And and I'm pleased that Kevin's finally got an assist. That's great.
Yeah,
but when he's passed the ball to Harrison Reed, I swear to you, I turned to my son and I went, he's not going to shoot. No, don't shoot from there, Harrison Reed. What are you doing? I'm literally thinking, no, what a waste. And as it's left his foot, I'm tracking the ball and I'm like, oh my. And then the next thing, it's like smashed the top of the crossbar and gone in the back of net. And I'm like, I can't believe what I've just seen. I just cannot believe what I've just witnessed. But it's just, I mean, that's football, Russ. That is football.
it's football, but you know what? Like I said, I've come on the show. I've made my thoughts pretty strong on Marco Silva. But the one thing that I do want to say before we wrap up this full-time show, I definitely want to do a post-match show into more detail on this match tomorrow on Monday. But I want to say, tactically, Marco did such a good job setting his team up. And I thought what travesty it would have been to get nothing. And I got to say that this is encouraging for the future. Listen, it's disappointing what happened against Crystal Palace, right? It's disappointing, but it's still Crystal Palace. This is still Liverpool. And to get a point against Liverpool with the situation that Fulham were under, I think is something extremely encouraging. I am so looking forward to the match coming up against that other team in Fulham. I'm looking forward to it, okay? Totally looking forward. And I think this sums it up because I have my 3 keys to victory. And I'm going to give – I think Fulham did all 3, okay? Number 1, Harry Wilson had to have a great game and make a difference. That's number 1. Fulham need to win this match ugly. They didn't win it, okay? So let's just say my 3 keys to victory. They didn't win this, but made it ugly. I thought the way that they played did not make it easy on Liverpool. Number 3, Marco had to win the coaching battle. Silva outcoached clueless a lot. This is from Chris. Would you agree with this?
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, from my perspective, Russ, now it's 5 games unbeaten. That's what I'm looking at. And, we've done it all different ways to get to this point. We've won ugly. We've won well. We've had difficult moments. We've come through. And we're showing that actually this team has got a lot of resilience, more resilience than maybe we thought it might have. And as I said, we've done it, Russ, with 3 key players not available.
And all these injuries.
Exactly. And another 3 that are on the injury table. So, imagine how things are going to look and be when they're all back and we've got, suddenly got the squad. I mean, look, today we had 2 goalkeepers on the bench. That tells you everything you need to know about our squad depth at the moment. So I know. I think that today, I think that, yes, Marco Silva definitely got the better of Slot because Slot could not, find a way to get past the way that we set up today. And at the end of the day, that's on him, his team and his players to do that. And as I said to you, 1 minute we're looking at defeat and the next minute we've pulled it back, to a draw. And that's what I'm saying. We've just shown that we've got this little bit of resilience about us now, this little bit of fight that I haven't seen in this group and a Marco Silva team for quite some time. So if we can build on that and keep that going, then we need to go into, the game against Chelsea very positive, very buoyant, and go there as well with no fear.
Exactly. And that to me, why I feel that this is different. What we watched today is different. Like you said, I've not seen this type of performance from Fulham in a while, something like this. So this is something that you can absolutely build on. All the players coming back. I'm going to say it right now. Anyone listening, if for some reason the powers that be are Fulham are watching or listening to this, get out your checkbook, get Marco additional players to take Fulham over the top and to Europe. Because right now we're hanging around. Take us over the top. We got a half a season, a little less than half the season to go. It can happen now. It can absolutely happen now. So look at what Fulham are doing with not a full squad right now. What happens when you add to it? It's all there for them, and that's what's encouraging. All right, my friend, let's end with man of the match. Who are you giving it to?
Ooh, that's a toughie. There were so many there's so many good performances today. I thought, as I said, Anderson, Cuenca, Diop were excellent. I thought Emil Smith-Rowe and Raul put in a huge shift. Harry Wilson for his goal, but you know what? And Kearney as well. I thought was really class today. But for me, I'm going to give it to Sasha Lukic.
Played great, man. Played great
because I thought that he was absolutely everywhere today for us, Russell. Defensively, offensively. I thought his shift today was outstanding.
Okay. It's funny because can you give it to Harrison Reed? Yes, absolutely. You can give it to Harrison Reed.
Of course.
I'm actually gonna go a little bit different. because I think that he worked his socks off. I'm going with our friend here. I'm going with Harry Wilson. I think Harry Wilson deserves it, but again, you can go in so many different places. But Harry Wilson, I thought, was great. I have to share this with Steve Reynolds. Yeah. You can go there too. Let's see, Dean Monroe. I'm going to just keep sharing. If you're watching live, feel free to share your comments. Maybe Cuenca or ESR, you talked about that. But yes, Lukic with the driving runs. And listen, you and I have been talking about we don't like the double pivot, right? We're not a fan of the double pivot. I'm still not a fan of the double pivot. I'm not going to change my mind on that. But individually, when they're out there, when it's you got Berger or you have Lukic by themselves with someone else, it can be dynamic. And if Lukic plays like this with Kearney, I think that's great. So I'm getting a lot of Sasa. Definitely getting a lot of Sasa. Definitely agree with that. Harry Wilson, man of the match. Combs going with Silva, man of the match. And thank you, Wayne, for your thoughts. All right. Tony, we've gone longer than I said we were going to go for a full-time show. We will have a post-match show on Monday. I'll also be doing a show with the guys from the Hammersmith end. A lot of commentary on this, all looking towards the match against Chelsea. Looking forward to it, and I'm getting a lot of comments. Thank you, everyone that is commenting. But I do want to wrap this up. For Tony Gold, I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.